Welcome to ML 4.1.2, Assessing Capabilities and Describing the Current State. Under the Knowledge area, Strategy Analysis, Task 6.1, Analyze Current State. Sarah Swan has been tasked with addressing a business need at ABC Laboratory. Partner physicians want their lab results integrated directly with their own patient portals. Competitors are beginning to offer the same service. Management wants a response quickly. Before Sarah can evaluate any solution, propose any option, or recommend any approach, she needs to answer a more fundamental question. What does ABC Laboratory actually have right now? The iLabs portal exists. The 1-800 call center exists. The lab network across North and South California exists. But existing is not the same as capable. Sarah needs to understand what the organization can do, what it cannot do, where its processes are strong, where they fall short, and how its current infrastructure connects, or fails to connect, to the physician portals already operating in the market. That work, mapping what exists, is what this lesson is about. There is a temptation, especially when management is asking for speed, to skip current state analysis and jump straight to solutions. The reasoning sounds practical. We know the problem, let us fix it. The problem with that shortcut is that the proposed fix may address the symptom and miss the cause entirely. If Sarah recommends a third-party vendor integration without first understanding what ABC Laboratories' current iLabs infrastructure can actually support, she may be recommending a solution that the organization's existing systems cannot accommodate, or one that duplicates capabilities it already has. Current state analysis is not a documentation exercise. It is a diagnostic one. The output of this task, the current state description, becomes the baseline that every future state decision is measured against. Without it, gap analysis is impossible. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to assess current organizational capabilities in relation to a stated business need, identify the strengths, gaps, and constraints that define the current state, and produce a current state description that serves as the baseline for all future state planning. You will also be ready for exam questions that test what the output of this task is called, what the next step is after reviewing the current state in a gap analysis, and how to identify the right first action when the business situation is unclear. Analyzing the current state means building a structured understanding of the enterprise as it exists today, not as stakeholders imagine it, not as it used to be, and not as anyone hopes it will become. The current state description captures 8 categories: scope, capabilities, resources, performance, culture, dependencies, infrastructure, and external influences. 2 outputs: the current state description and business requirements, the problem, opportunity, or constraint that emerges from understanding the current state. Important nuance: the current state is rarely static. While a change is being developed, internal and external forces continue to shift the organization. A regulator may introduce new compliance requirements. A competitor may launch a new service. The business analyst must remain alert. Gap analysis is one of the most important analytical techniques in business analysis, and it is impossible to perform without a defined current state. The gap is the distance between where the organization is and where it needs to be. Without the starting point, there is no distance to measure. The exam tests this task in 2 distinct ways. The first pattern presents a gap analysis scenario and asks what comes next after the current state has been reviewed. The answer is always to define the future state capabilities. The second pattern presents a situation where something is going wrong and asks what the business analyst should do first. The answer is always to understand the current state before proposing any solution. Capability assessment also protects organizations from redundant investment. Step 1. Define the scope. The current state can be described at many levels, from the full enterprise down to a single process or system. For ABC Laboratory, Sarah focuses on capabilities related to test result delivery and physician portal integration. Step 2. Gather information. Current state information is obtained through elicitation, interviews, document analysis, observation, and performance data review. This runs in parallel with elicitation activities. Step 3. Analyze capabilities. A capability is a function, process, service, or proficiency. The business analyst assesses what the organization can do, where it is strong, where it falls short, and the root causes driving any gaps. Step 4. Identify constraints and external influences. Budgetary, technology, regulatory, and infrastructure boundaries are captured along with external forces. Competitor moves, market shifts, new regulations. Step 5. Produce the current state description. Structured around the 8 elements, specific enough to enable gap analysis but focused on what is relevant to the change. Pause. At ABC Laboratory, Sarah discovers the iLabs platform has no published API. What does this constraint mean for the options available in the future state, and how should it be captured in the current state description? 7 techniques support capability assessment and current state description. Business capability analysis identifies what the organization can do and prioritizes gaps by value and risk. Process modeling maps current workflows and reveals what capability lists miss. Organizational modeling describes reporting relationships and identifies structural constraints. Benchmarking and market analysis compares capabilities against external baselines. Concept modeling prevents ambiguity in how current state elements are described across stakeholder groups. Data mining extracts patterns from existing data to understand performance. Interface analysis examines how systems interact. At ABC Laboratory, this technique directly reveals the iLabs platform's limitations against the physician portal requirement. Sarah Swan begins capability assessment at ABC Laboratory. Business capability analysis reveals that iLabs delivers pathology results online, printable as PDFs, 24/7 from any location. Genuine capability, but passive. The system waits for login. No outbound notification, no data feed, no external integration. Process modeling reveals the test result delivery workflow involves 4 steps and 2 manual handoffs, both time-dependent and neither automated. Interface analysis is the most critical finding. The iLabs platform was built on a proprietary system with no published application programming interface. It cannot exchange data with external systems in a structured, automated way. This is not a minor limitation. It is a fundamental constraint on every future state option involving physician portal integration. Benchmarking confirms that 2 direct competitors have already launched live result feeds to physician portals. ABC Laboratory is falling behind the competitive baseline. Sarah consolidates these findings into the current state description, the baseline from which future state planning begins. The exam tests this task through 2 consistent scenario patterns. Pattern 1, gap analysis sequence. Once the current state is reviewed, the next step is always to define the future state capabilities. Gap analysis requires both endpoints. No exceptions. Pattern 2, unclear situation. First action. When a business analyst is brought in to investigate, the first action is always to understand the current state before proposing any solution, training, research, or procurement action. Know both outputs, current state description and business requirements. Both appear on the exam. Question 1. A business analyst works for a financial institution, planning to acquire new systems and migrate all future business operations to them. The business analyst is responsible for performing a gap analysis and has reviewed the current state of the systems. What is the next task the business analyst needs to do to complete the gap analysis? A. Identify performance measures. B. Define the future state capabilities. C. Categorize risk factors. D. Select the stakeholder engagement approach. Take 5 seconds. The answer is B. Define the future state capabilities. Why B is correct. Gap analysis requires both a current state and a future state. The current state has been reviewed. The next step is defining the future state capabilities so the gap can be identified. There is no gap to analyze without both endpoints. Why A is wrong. Identifying performance measures belongs to measurement planning, not next in gap analysis. Why C is wrong. Categorizing risk factors is part of risk assessment, not gap analysis completion. Why D is wrong. Stakeholder engagement approach is a planning task completed before analysis begins. Navigation tip. Gap analysis plus current state reviewed, right pointing arrow define future state. No exceptions. Question 2. A distribution company serving about 1,000 retail outlets has experienced a slow, steady decline in its customer base over 2 years. Management attributed the trend to increased competition and hired a new sales team. After 4 months, there is still no improvement. Management has engaged a business analyst to investigate. What should the business analyst do first? A. Perform market research. B. Create a training program. C. Review historic sales and related data. D. Identify training providers and issue a request for proposal. Take 5 seconds. The answer is C. Review historic sales and related data to understand what is happening to the customer base. Why C is correct. The business analyst has been engaged to investigate, not to act on management's assumption that competition is the cause. The first responsibility is to understand the current state. Management's assumption may be wrong. Why A is wrong? Market research assumes competition is the root cause before any analysis confirms it. Why B is wrong? Creating a training program assumes a skill gap problem with no evidence. Why D is wrong? Issuing a request for proposal is a procurement action. No solution has been defined. Navigation tip. Whenever the exam presents a business analyst brought in to investigate a problem, the first action is always to understand the current state before recommending anything. Lock in these 4 points before any analyze current state exam question. First, know both outputs, current state description and business requirements. Both are examinable. Second, gap analysis sequence. Current state reviewed, right pointing arrow. Next is define future state capabilities. The exam offers identify performance measures and categorize risks as distractors. Neither is next. Third, investigation equals current state first. When a business analyst is brought in to investigate any unclear situation, the first action is always to understand the current state before recommending anything. Fourth, a capability is a function, process, service, or other proficiency, not a feature, not a requirement. In this lesson, you worked through the capability assessment and current state description elements of Analyze Current State. You applied the 7 techniques to the ABC laboratory scenario, traced how Sarah Swan's assessment produced a structured current state description, and worked through the 2 exam patterns that surface most consistently from this task. You cannot measure the gap until you know the starting point. The current state description is that starting point. Next is ML 4.2.1. Where are we headed? Defining business goals and future state boundaries. That lesson takes the current state description produced in this lesson and uses it as the launching point for defining what success looks like. You will learn how to articulate clear business goals and desired outcomes, establish the boundaries of the solution space, and ensure key stakeholders share a consensus vision of the future state. If this lesson answered the question of where the organization is, the next one answers where it is going and how to define that destination precisely enough to build toward it. See you in ML 4.2.1. You are doing the work. That is what it takes.